Our story begins with an unexpected encounter. Yonosuke, who is also known as Sakai, is an ordinary guy. He is passionate about romantic comedies, especially those stories in which everyone seems to like each other. They usually involve childhood friends, where the girls, at some moments, are too shy to admit what they feel, while in other versions they end up being extremely bold and want to skip steps quickly. However, Sakai knows very well that all of this is just fiction. In real life, things rarely work that way. Even so, he refuses to abandon this small hope. While reflecting on this, he ends up falling asleep. At a certain moment, he wakes up bothered, realizing that the bedroom window was open once again. Irritated, he starts shouting Shio's name, who appears almost immediately. That is when he notices something even more surprising. She was lying in the same bed as him. The girl wraps him in an affectionate hug, using him as if he were a pillow. To be honest, it is not exactly a bad situation. At several moments, her actions seem to have come straight out of a romantic comedy. However, reality tends to be a little harsher. Instead of enjoying the moment, he wakes her up, complaining that she is extremely inconvenient. The worst part comes right after, when that eccentric girl wakes up and starts yelling at him, accusing him of having invaded her bed. Sakai tries to defend himself, saying that it was she who entered the room without asking permission. Even so, according to Shio, the fault is his for never fixing the window. Tired of the argument, the protagonist simply tells her to go away. As Shio is already used to this routine, she does not seem to care. Without wasting time, she decides to leave through the window, using it as a shortcut. At that moment, the wind blows strongly, revealing a beautiful view to Sakai. That could even be seen as something positive. But the truth is that they have repeated this same ritual since childhood. He knows that his friend is somewhat unpredictable, as if she always had something out of place. Because of that, he tries to be patient and make her realize when she makes mistakes. Although this is quite exhausting in daily life. Despite that, Sakai is also human, is in the middle of adolescence, and what once only irritated him now begins to awaken other feelings. Even so, he makes an effort to keep control. After all, Shio is his childhood friend. The problem is that she does not cooperate even a little. For example, when he leaves home to go to school trying to push away inappropriate thoughts, Shio is already waiting for him and clings to him, stating that, since they have been friends since they were little, there is nothing wrong with that. For Sakai, this ends up being painful, even if subtly, because his feelings are no longer so simple. She, on the other hand, acts as if nothing is happening, insisting on keeping only the friendship. What Sakai does not imagine is that Shio is not as innocent as she appears. He fears that, if she discovered that he sees her as a woman, everything could change. Therefore, he decides to keep this secret at any cost. However, Shio seems to do everything on purpose. She teases him indirectly, even using her own body for that, but remains cold, pretending not to notice anything. This attitude frustrates him, although, in a way, it also motivates him to try to win her heart. Taking advantage of the way, Shio then counterattacks, pretending to have twisted her ankle so that he will take care of her. Sakai sees no problem with that, since he is already used to it. She notices that he carries a small first aid kit and asks the reason. He explains that it is because she is always getting into trouble, jumping through windows as if she were a hero and ending up hurt. Because of that, he always prepares himself to help her. This attitude ends up warming Shio's heart even more. When Sakai realizes that she did not get hurt for real, he stands up and says that they can already head to school. Without thinking much, Shio gets up and holds his hand. This leaves both of them extremely embarrassed, since it is not something common between them. Even so, Sakai accepts it, using the excuse that, if he does not do that, she might end up being late, as used to happen when they were children. To make sure that he will not let go, Shio claims that her ankle still hurts a little. Like a true gentleman, he does not abandon her, although he thinks to himself that it will always be like this, just childhood friends. Even being so close, he believes that they will never cross that line. They decide to keep walking, and when they reach the main street, they notice that there are many people around. Shio asks what others must think when seeing them holding hands. Sakai, gathering courage, moves forward without caring. Even so, the entire path feels like torture for his heart. which beats faster and faster because of embarrassment. Despite that, they share a special moment, until someone suddenly appears. Akari, another childhood friend, shows up in front of them. Surprised, both immediately drop their backpacks. They try to come up with an excuse when they realize that Akari noticed their intertwined hands. However, her surprise soon turns into mockery. Akari decides to take a photo to send to both of their mothers. When trying to grab her bag, her hand starts shaking intensely. She says that it is just from laughing so much. But Sakai tries to help her, which makes her irritated. Akari then tells him to step back and warns him to be careful. Sakai is completely shocked, while Akari simply walks away, leaving the two behind. Sakai tries only to clarify the whole confusion, but ends up messing things up. Without realizing it, he touches her chest, then her face, and that is enough to leave her completely embarrassed. On impulse, she hits Sakai with the suitcase right in the middle of his face and still scolds him, calling him a pervert. In the middle of the argument, her friend tries to explain that she was only taking Sakai practically by force to school. And, to everyone's surprise, that was exactly the truth. Gradually, Akari calms down and says that the two of them are complete fools, since they keep giving people the wrong impression. Then, she leaves, leaving Sakai and Shio alone, both with a strange feeling in their chests. They try to convince themselves that that moment was not pleasant at all, although, deep down, they know that is not quite true. Sakai thinks that, if he had acted in a more romantic way, Akari would probably have mocked him even more, which would have been extremely embarrassing. After all, Shio feels something similar, and that only increases his doubts and insecurities. It becomes clear that Akari is one of the reasons why the two never moved beyond friendship. Away from the eyes of others, Akari acts in a completely different way. She cannot help but feel fear. In a lonely moment, she takes something like a pass or keepsake where there is a photo of her with Sakai, and thinks that, deep down, she believes the two of them could still end up together. She does not want Shio to move forward, but even when she tries, she ends up acting impulsively, causing both physical and emotional damage. It is not something she does on purpose. She simply cannot avoid it. Part of this comes from the fact that Sakai is a boy full of confused desires, who ended up touching her without intention. When remembering this, Akari becomes even more frustrated, especially for thinking that he saw her as less attractive than her other friend, which rekindles her desire to hit him again. However, when she starts to get worked up, she tries to calm herself, thinking that maybe it is not worth worrying so much about that boy. At the same time, Sakai also wants to change things. He wants to win the heart of his best friend, while trying to hide all the feelings that arise inside him. Thus, the three of them end up trapped in a strange love triangle. When classes resume, Akari and Sakai return to their old routine of constant teasing. The difference is that, this time, she is not the protagonist of the story. To others, Akari is just someone extremely annoying, something that has always been true. They spend a good part of the time arguing over silly reasons. An example of this happens when the two of them buy exactly the same juice. Akari accuses Sakai of trying to imitate her, while he does not accept the idea that they simply have similar tastes. In the end, it seems that they cannot stand each other, at least in front of other people. The one who usually tries to keep the peace between the two is Shio, who is friends with both of them. She always tries to make them understand each other, but they are like water and oil. Besides that, she cannot always be around. Curiously, Akari and Sakai spend quite a lot of time together, since they sit next to each other in the classroom, in an attempt to improve the relationship. Akari says that she could even be kinder if he begged, but Sakai answers in the same tone. Inside, this bothers him, because none of this happened when they were children. In the past, Akari rarely stayed away from him, but now they can barely consider themselves friends. Even studying at the same school, Sakai begins to question whether this is really a good thing. Still, like a true gentleman, he decides to swallow his pride and comments that both of them chose that juice because it is really tasty. Akari even agrees, but soon returns to her aggressive behavior. She calls him an idiot all the time, although, deep down, she feels even more foolish. The truth is that Akari made a great effort. She studied to enter the same school, bought the same things, and did everything to have topics in common. all of that just to get his attention. She believes that when Sakai finally looks at her for real, she will not be so harsh anymore. While thinking about all of this, the two of them get thirsty and open their bottles at the same time. The scene is strangely similar, and both notice it, even while pretending to hate each other. When Sakai is about to drink, he notices something wrong. That was not his bottle. Akari tries to warn him, but it is already too late. To her, that seems like an indirect kiss, which makes her mind imagine the two of them together, leaving her extremely embarrassed. Even so, she tries to stay calm and turns the situation into teasing, asking if something as silly as drinking from the same bottle really bothered him. Noticing that Sakai turns red, Akari insists even more and ends up asking, without any filter, if he is still a virgin. Sakai is completely shocked by the question and decides to counterattack, asking if she already has experience. This leaves Akari embarrassed, but she answers yes, saying that real kisses are not even a big deal anymore. Sakai and Akari enter a mutual provocation that ends up leading to the possibility of a kiss, despite the huge embarrassment of both of them. The situation becomes complicated when Sakai admits that he lied about his experience and reveals that he has never kissed anyone. Instead of mocking him, Akari becomes happy to know that that would also be her first time with him and gets excited to kiss him. However, the moment is interrupted by the unexpected arrival of Shio, causing confusion and embarrassment, especially when a childish side of Akari ends up being revealed. As time goes by, Sakai finds himself at the center of attention for having two childhood friends who are very close, which awakens envy and teasing from the other boys. Shio, even noticing his discomfort, does not give up and continues being affectionate, even creating embarrassing situations in public. Akari reappears and tries to impose limits, but ends up joining the teasing as well, turning everything into a competition between the two. The situation gets out of control until Sakai has to push them away, which generates apologies from both girls. Despite the chaos, he ends up being seen as someone admirable by his classmates, while Akari and Shio remain determined to win his heart.